I want to tell you folks a little story. So I was watching X-Men 97 with my partner to get her acquainted with the X-Men because aside from the Deadpool movies, she's never seen or heard of them in her life. The most she knew was that there was a dude named Wolverine played by Hugh Jackman. Anyway, we're watching the show, I'm enjoying it, she's enjoying it, and then the usual comic book craziness starts happening. Clones, time travel, alternate realities, you know, everyday X-Men stuff. But none of that really phases her. She's seen these kinds of things before. What really messes with her head is Cable and how his timeline works. So I gave her an explanation with a little comic book background thrown in the form of a brief summation of the Summers family, and when I was done, she looked me right in the eyes and said, "Oh, so the X-Men are just a telenovela." Now I've teased her in the past for her love of telenovelas, specifically Jane the Virgin, specifically because of this one scene. So when she said that, I froze for 3 seconds, realized she was right, and laughed out loud for an entire minute. Because my god, the X-Men are the most overdramatic, messy, unstable, incestuous cast of superheroes in comics. The fact that if you mapped their relationships into a chart, you'd get a web with more crossovers than Scooby-Doo is a testament to that. Don't believe me? Well, keep on watching, because in this video, I'm going to attempt to map out the uncanny family ties of the X-Men. That's right. Every brother, sister, clone, hybrid, temporally displaced child, and brought back to life baby. No stone will go unturned. Let's start off with the vanilla ice cream couple of the X-Men universe. The Boy Scout with a psychic fetish, Scott Summers, and the lady who rises from the ashes while rocking sashes, Jean Grey. Now, these two are like the high school sweethearts who have been together forever and swear they're doing just fine. On again and off again with plenty of twists and turns. While Cyclops and Jean don't actually have any kids of their own from the 616 universe, they do have a couple from alternate ones. From Days of Future Past, they have Rachel Summers, aka Prestige, aka Ascani, aka Phoenix, aka Marvel Girl, aka Can't Choose a Codename to Save Her Life. She was sent back in time and into the present-day Prime Universe by a shard of the Phoenix Force. From the Age of Apocalypse, we've got Nathaniel Grey, not to be confused with Nathaniel Summers, we'll get to him soon. Nathaniel, or Nate, was not born of a natural or even consenting union. He was created by everyone's favourite mutant mangler, Mr. Sinister, by combining Cyclops' and Jean's DNA together with a time-space altering crystal. Nate jump universes and enter the main one to walk the world as a weird Jesus-looking hippie that calls himself X-Man. But that isn't all the kids that Cyclops and Jean have. They've got plenty more, just not with each other. Enter Madeline Pryor, a Jean lookalike Cyclops went and got himself married to, because there's nothing weird about starting a relationship with someone who looks identical to your dead ex. Turns out, it wasn't just a coinky-dink that Madeline and Jean were mirrors of each other, because Maddie is a clone of Jeannie, made by, you guessed it, Mr. Sinister. But before that revelation, Scott ended up knocking up Mads and they had a baby named Nathaniel Summers, aka Cable. Said baby ended up being sent into the future by, and this is where things get weird, Rachel. Well, an alternate universe Rachel named Mother Ascani, who needed Cable as he's the baby messiah destined to save mutant kind. Now, through more time travel shenanigans, Scott and Jean, not Maddie, get projected into the future in order to raise this baby Cable. But oh wait, I almost forgot. Baby Cable was suffering from the techno-organic virus after being infected by Apocalypse, which is the reason why he was sent into the future in the first place, so that he could be cured. But Mother Ascani thought he couldn't be initially, and so she had the great idea to clone Cable so that she had a backup messiah just in case. Because the Summers family has such a great track record with clones, right? Anyway, that clone ended up being abandoned and raised by Apocalypse, giving us Nathan Summers, aka Strife. Okay, back to OG Cable. He ended up growing up to become a time-traveling rebel, obsessed with pouches and over-designed guns. He himself had 2 kids. The first, his maybe adopted, maybe biological son, Tyler Dayspring, aka Genesis. This guy is not important. He kinda just cosplays as Apocalypse for a while, then gets killed by Wolverine. The second is Hope Summers. Now she is very important. A mutant messiah, some might say. Like father, like daughter. She was the first mutant born after M-Day brought the mutant population down to 198. Now, For a long time, Hope's parentage wasn't really important, or known, I guess is a better way of saying it. Her mother was a firefighter, her father was, well, we didn't know. Was it immaculate conception? Was it mitosis? No. That would be relatively normal compared to the truth. Did you notice she kinda looks like Jean? Well, if the X-Men comics have taught us anything, if someone looks like Jean, it's probably for a reason. In case you're not picking up what I'm putting down, Hope's father is Jean, or Phoenix Jean if you want to get technical. Think about that for a moment. Cable adopted Hope, raised her, was a father to her, because his deadbeat of a reverse clone mom, possessed by the universal personification of rebirth, left to get milk in another plane of existence, and didn't come back. And we ain't done, because now we gotta talk about Scott and Emma. After having a psychic affair with her, followed by Jean's second dying breath begging him to boink her, Scott had a long-standing relationship with Emma Frost. Now they didn't have any kids themselves, but thanks to a billion-year-old sentient bacteria in the guise of a billionaire tech bro, Emma has 5 daughters created from eggs harvested from her and turned into weapons by the Weapon Plus program. These daughters, Phoebe, Sophie, Esme, Celeste, and Irma, were known as the 5-in-1, aka the Stepford Cuckoos. During the post-schism days, Scott acted as a mentor to the girls alongside Emma. However, they never really took the form of fully fledged parents. That just wasn't in the cards for Schemmer. But if you want to count it, they do have an alternate universe daughter named Ruby Summers, but she hasn't shown up much. More recently, Scott and Emma were in a maybe not because of editorial poly relationship with Jean and Wolverine. Then it seemed like it was just a throuple of Cyclops, Jean and Wolverine when Emma and Iron Man got married. Don't ask. Speaking of a Summers in a polyamorous relationship, Cable, no, not that Cable, or that Cable, the kid version that came from the future and murdered his future self Cable. There we go. Anyway, Cable ended up dating the Stepford Cuckoos while on Krakoa. Yep, all 5 sisters. Essentially, Cyclops' son dated the kinda clone daughters of his father's ex. But it gets weirder. Rachel, yes, that Rachel, is currently dating Psylocke, who seems to have an obsession with speed running the Summers family. In the past, she has been horrendously horny for Cyclops, slept with Cable, and made out with Alex Summers. Who is Alex Summers? Oh boy, looks like it's time to dive into the extended Summers family. So, Alex is Scott's younger brother. He's got similar energy powers, except he shoots them out of his fingers instead of his eyeballs. The brothers were separated as kids when a bunch of bird aliens beamed up their parents, more on that later. As adults, they were reunited as X-Men. Now Havoc has a teensy bit of a middle child complex. He just can't catch a break. Mostly because he couldn't stop pining after his brother's ex-wife. Yep, you heard right. Havoc and Madeline Pryor are an item, because nothing says rebound like boning your ex's brother. They have no home dimension children of their own, but they do have an alternate son from the Mutant X timeline named Scotty Charles Summers. Oh, and also Alex has a daughter with the Wasp from an alternate future where the Earth is destroyed and mutants move to another planet. Alright, next Summers' brother. What's that? You only thought there were 2? Well, as it turns out, Cyclops and Havoc's mother was pregnant when she was abducted. She was then promptly killed and had her unborn child ripped out of her. Said child was aged up at an accelerated rate, and bing bang boom, you've got Gabriel Summers. Now Gabriel is very much a I've been here the whole time kind of character. He was sold into alien slavery, sent to Earth to serve some goober named Eric the Red, then was semi-adopted by Moira McTaggart. And then it all went downhill when he met Professor Xavier. Because Xavier made him an X-Man and sent him to be a part of a brand new team to rescue the old one. Then that brand new team died. And Charles did the oh so responsible and not at all unethical thing and wiped everyone's memories of the fact, including Cyclops's, who had just learnt that he had a brother. But Gabriel, aka Vulcan, was not dead, and he was very pissed. Very pissed would continue to describe most of his character throughout publication. He ends up going off the deep end, taking over the Shi'ar Empire, declaring himself king of space, waging war against the rest of space, and getting lost between dimensions after losing that war. In between all of that, Vulcan managed to father a child with Deathbird, the sister of Lilandra, aka the Empress of the Shi'ar Bird People, aka sister of Deken, the former emperor who killed Mama Summers, aka on-again and off-again lover of Charles Xavier. Who is this child? Well, we don't actually know. The child hasn't shown up in years and has yet to be named, but hey, I'm sure they'll show up as a masked interstellar X-Men villain whose first appearance will be accompanied with "Who is Dargos?" And of course, 12 issues later, another cover will say their identity threatens to change everything, even though everyone guessed it on page 2 of issue 1. Well, that about wraps up the Summers boys. Oh wait, I almost forgot. How could I talk about the Summers family without mentioning Corsair? In case you didn't know, Christopher Summer, the father of the Summers boys I mentioned, survived the abduction. While his wife was killed, he managed to escape with some prisoners and eventually became a space pirate with a catgirl lady friend. His team, the Starjammers, are somewhat of a staple of Marvel Cosmic, crossing paths with the X-Men and other intergalactic heroes. Okay, now we're done with the Summers family. Although, I could talk about Cyclops' great-great-grandmother, the Black Womb, Amanda Mueller, and her genetic experiments that impacted the entire Summers line. She also happens to still be alive and kicking thanks to, well, who else? Mr. Sinister. There's also Cyclops' kinda daughter with Gwen Stacy of all people. Due to the borderline fetishist actions of Miles Warren, aka the Jackal, aka Spider-Man's own personal Sinister, this clone, named Gwen Warren, was created using the DNA of Gwen Stacy, the Spider Queen, and Cyclops for some reason. She has the not at all surprising powers of turning into a giant spider and shooting lasers from her eyes. Circling back to Rachel, we can also talk about the fact that she and Franklin Richards, son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm of the Fantastic Four, were at a time destined to be an Omega-level power couple. Oh, and did you know it was actually planned for Gambit to be a clone of Cyclops? Isn't that neat? Fine, okay, twist my arm, why don't you? I'll talk about Adam X. So Adam X, the Extreme, is a genetically engineered Gestalt being of the Shi'ar Emperor, D'Ken, Catherine Summers, and the 90s. He grew up as a space farmer, but also was trained to be the bestest warrior around. He wears a backwards baseball cap, is covered in blades, and even has Wolverine claws. Isn't that radical? He's super strong, fast, can heal, and has the power to set people's blood on fire. How awesome is that? Extremely, of course. As you can probably tell, I really hate Adam X. Not because he's an edgy, over-designed Gary Sue distillation of everything bad about 90s comics, but because he's just so damn boring. Nothing about him is interesting, nothing about his stories are interesting. He's kinda just there. On the bright side, thanks to Poochie and Space Hitler, Havoc can safely say he is far from the worst Summers brother, even though he did this. Well, there you are. The Summers family summarized. All the interstellar, interdimensional, intertemporal antics that weave together one of the most overcomplicated families in comics. And to think, all of it came from what started off as a run-of-the-mill, missionary-only, seasoning-is-optional couple. But we are far from done. The House of S may have had their time in the sun, but there are plenty more family trees with branches that are in need of a good shake. So stay tuned for more sci-fi soap opera shenanigans in the days to future come.